So how do you determine, or how do your people in the field determine that somebody is a gang member?
Look, there's various methods. No, I've noticed in the media this week, a lot of them don't have criminal histories. Well, a lot of gang members don't have criminal histories.
I have no idea what this mumble mouth guy just said, so let's listen closer.
Look, there's various methods. No, I've noticed in the media this week, a lot of them don't have criminal histories. Well, a lot of gang members don't have criminal histories. Just like a lot of terrorists in this world, they're not in any terrorist database, right? We only know the information what's in databases based on, for instance, most terrorists we arrest that are identified by the U.S. government are later identified through a Title III investigation or through an undercover operation. They're not in any terrorist screening database. We know that. A lot of gang members, I started as a cop in 1984. Many gang members don't have a criminal history. So we have a count on social media. We have a count on surveillance techniques. We have a count on sworn statements from other gang members. We have a count on, wiretaps and Title IIIs. Everything involved with criminal investigations come into play. So just because someone hasn't been arrested and charged with a crime yet, doesn't mean they're a member of a gang.
So the tough guy that promised to get violent criminals off the streets and out of the country just said that the people he's targeting don't have criminal records, but that they're criminals anyway. Just like the way they consider certain people terrorists, so they can skirt the Constitution and the law to do whatever they want. So in case you needed an extremely clear admission to it, Homan gives it here too.
But how do you, what we've heard from lawyers representing some of these people is that they deny that they're members of this gang, or either, Tren de Aragua or MS-13. Do they get a chance to prove that before you take them out of the country and put them in to a notorious prison in a country that they're not even from? Do they have any due process at all?
Look, due process. Where was Lake and Ronnie's due process? Where were all these young women that were killed and raped by members of TDA? Where was their due process?
Well, the people that did that should be prosecuted.
Alive on a subway, where's her due process?
Well,
the bottom line is that plane was full of people designated as terrorists, number one. Number two, every Venezuelan migrant on that flight was a TDA member based on numerous criminal investigations, on intelligence reports, and a lot of work by ICE officers.
These cowards like to evoke the names and stories of the people that they used during the campaign to now hide behind them when accountability for the Constitution comes to slap them in the face. So how many times have you heard Tom Homan ask where Breonna Taylor, Sonia Massey, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice's due process was before they were murdered by cops? And since he's very confident in ICE's social media searches as evidence of crimes, he shouldn't have a bit of trouble proving it in court, right? But he doesn't want to, because he doesn't believe in the courts or the Constitution. He believes in the abuse of power.
Well, I found it remarkable that any district judge has the authority to overrule the president's executive orders. And what basically he wanted us to do is turn planes around in midair full of terrorists and bring them back into the United States, which is just ridiculous. And we didn't do it. Now it's under litigation. But as I've been clear, I'll let DOJ fight that out. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a cop, so we'll let the lawyers fight it out. But bottom line is we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. We're going to arrest aliens today. We're going to arrest TDA today. We're going to deport TDA today. We're going to deport criminals every single day. ICE is out there right now. I just looked at the numbers. There are about 40,000 arrested by ICE in the interior since the president took office, a vast majority of them being public safety threats and national security threats.
We're going to ignore the courts and due process based on evidence of because I told you so. But when cops murder Americans in the streets and in their cars and even in their homes, there's a 50-50 chance that they'll be prosecuted to the disappointment of this president, though.
We're going to give back our law enforcement. We're going to give them back the respect that they deserve. They are being treated so badly. If they do something that's harsh to stop a crime, they end up losing their pension, they end up losing their job, they end up losing their family and their home. And I'm giving immunity to police all over the country for that. We have some police forces where they make you go out and get a lawyer to defend yourself. They won't defend you. You have to hire your own lawyer.
So what reason does anyone that this sorry piece of shit is attacking have to respect him and his decision-making? After your loved one is murdered for no reason by a cop, given immunity and a disgruntled attitude, what reason do you have to trust that they'll pay any attention to the law? But there's another aspect of this whole thing that highlights just how cowardly this president really is. Because now that the attention is on his blatant disregard for the law and his affinity for fascism is on full display, he's now distancing himself from the self-serving declarations that he's been making.
It doesn't sound like this judge, who the DOJ is arguing with today about the deportation flights, he wants to know why the proclamation was signed in the dark, his words, and why people were rushed onto planes.
Because we want to get criminals out of our country, number one, and I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it. But Marco Rubio's done a great job, and he wanted them out, and we go along with that. We want to get criminals out of our country.
If there was a flight like tonight with these guys, even though it's still being litigated, if there was a flight tonight full of accused gang members, and somebody called and said, Mr. President, I know that this is still being adjudicated, but we can get these guys down to El Salvador right now. Would you say that that's okay?
I would say that I'd have the Secretary of State handle it because I'm not really involved in that.
I don't know when the proclamation was signed because I didn't sign it. And I'm not really involved with all that. This is coming from the guy that gets his people to declare that he and he alone has created this scenario of deporting all the most violent gang members, drug dealers, rapists, and murderers for some clout. But now he doesn't really know because that's on Marco Rubio. It's not only pathetic, but it appears to be a lie based on his statement from this place called the White House. President Donald J. Trump signed a proclamation evoking the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by a foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Aragua, using his core powers as president and commander-in-chief to defend the American people from that urgent threat. This weekend, at the president's direction, the Department of Homeland Security successfully arrested nearly 300 Tren de Aragua terrorists, saving countless American lives. Thanks to the great work of the Department of State, these heinous monsters were extracted and removed to El Salvador, where they will no longer be able to pose any threat to the American people. And here's a little bit more for all the people without Trump derangement syndrome, which actually means we see him for what he is. As President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, it is my solemn duty to protect the American people from the devastating effects of this invasion. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the Alien Enemies Act. So, are the proclamations and announcements of him being a lawless badass a lie? Or are his cowardly comments about how it has nothing to do with him a lie? Or maybe his rant about Joe Biden and the Autopen that he claims nullifies everything that he signed, actually that applies to Trump.
Biden and his people, and his probably Autopen. It looked like we had an Autopen for a president, and we would have been better off if we had probably. But it looks to me like, that's a big subject. I'm sure you won't ask about that, but the whole subject of Autopen, did he know what he was doing? Did he authorize it? Or is this somebody in an office, maybe a radical left lunatic, just signing whatever that person wants?
Mr. President?
Yeah.
To follow up on the Biden Autopen, are those executive orders, those pardons from the former president now null and void?
Well, I think so. It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an Autopen to sign off and to give pardons to, as an example, it's just one example, but the J6 Unselect Committee. They gave pardons with an Autopen. I don't think Biden knew anything about it. I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it. I'm not really involved in that.